Hello, this video is part of a series of videos on how to get started with your science fair project and how to perform an award-winning project. This video series is brought to you by the Ritchey Science and Engineering Fair at Weber State University in Ogden, Utah. My name is Dr. John Soule, and I'm a physics professor at Weber State. One of the things we want to talk about today is the difference between a science fair project that is a science project and a science fair project that is an engineering project. The two of them have some substantial overlaps, but they are also quite different in many respects. First of all, let's take a look at the differences between them. For a science project, we generally want to know how nature works. What is the why of something? For an engineering project, and that often includes computer projects, we are more interested in putting things to work for us, to make something happen, to solve some sort of a problem. For a science fair project, we are interested in exploring and understanding the universe around us. For an engineering project, we're interested in creating something, in inventing some sort of a system or a computer or a project or some equipment that will accomplish something. For science, we're interested in things that are immediately practical or things that are purely interesting to our brains and are completely theoretical, which might someday become practical. In the case of engineering, it has to be practical. We want to find out how the device works and make it work better. In the case of science, we want to identify a problem. In the case of computer science and engineering, we're looking for more of identifying a need that needs a solution. For science, we want to design tests that are fair, tests that will give us the correct answer without bias. In the case of an engineering project, we want to make something that will solve a need, something that will solve a problem in a particularly efficient way. For the sake of science, we must have variables that we can control and variables that we are going to investigate. And in the case of engineering, it just simply has to work in some sort of simple and easy way. All right, so for science, what that generally means is you need to state a question and then from that look for a solution. In the case of engineering, that generally means that we're going to define a problem and then look for a way to solve that problem. In both cases, we have to do background research. That's what some of the earlier videos in the series were all about. For the scientific process, we want to make sure that we can have variables defined and that we can clearly identify a hypothesis that we are going to investigate. In the case of engineering, we need to find out exactly what it is that we're trying to solve, lay those requirements out, and then move forward to solve those requirements. For science, we need to make an experiment and a procedure. For engineering, we need to make sure that we have solutions and build prototypes. In science, we test that hypothesis with those variables. Engineering first. Look at the size of this. This is awfully complicated. Let's go ahead and see if we can make this a little bit more simple. Okay, let's take a look at the engineering cycle. This is defined for us by NASA in this particular case, but there are many, many variants on this, all of which are basically the same. The first thing you've got to do is to identify what the problem is you're trying to solve. You need to figure out what it is that is necessary in that problem to be solved. Think about how to go about doing it. Once you've got those ideas in place, you have to figure out which ways we might use to solve those problems. Once we've figured that out, then we can actually build something to try and do it. Our first thing we make is the prototype. Once we've done that, we need to test the prototype. The prototype's going to have problems to it. Find out what those problems are, modify the prototype, and then go back to our original problem and ask, did we solve the problem? That's the general approach for engineering. Taking just the bottom part of that earlier complicated graphic, and those graphics are available in the handouts associated with this workshop, taking the bottom part of that engineering cycle process is the part that you will spend a substantial amount of time doing. Once you decide what you need to do, you must build something that is going to solve this problem. That building might be code for a computer program. It might be hardware for some other sort of more common engineering project, such as a robot or some other device that you are making. Once you build that, you need to test it. That's really, really key. And then when you do that test has to ask the question, did my prototype work? If my prototype didn't work, Then you've got to revise it, figure out why it didn't work, looking at your data, figure out what changes need to be made, make those changes and try it again. This is the standard way that we run through all engineering projects, and it's very similar to science projects in many ways. For engineering projects, it is important that the problem that we're solving, it has to be a real problem. Solving something that doesn't actually matter to people results in an engineering project that doesn't have a market. And there's no sense in doing that. It needs to solve something that people really care about. It has to be clear. What exactly is it that you're trying to do? Really, really important, because if you don't have a clear definition of your problem, then you're not going to be able to make something to solve that problem. It doesn't do you any good to design a solution that is difficult to use and makes it even worse than what you started with. The solution must be better than the problem. The solution also has to actually address the problem and not solve something here when the problem is here. So you need to actually solve the problem itself, and it's got to be something that is reasonably practical. And the solution has to be affordable. Back in the late 1800s, Rube Goldberg was born, and he was an early 1900s engineer, cartoonist, and inventor. And he had lots of fun inventing real things, and he also had lots of fun inventing silly things. You don't want your projects to be a silly solution to a practical, simple problem. You don't want to build Rube Goldberg type devices. Your device has to be straightforward and usable. Once you've built your prototype, you have to thoroughly test your prototype out, and it needs to make sense. When you make your measurements while you're testing it, the measurements you make have to be the correct units. You don't want to measure distance in seconds. You don't want to measure power in something like joules, because joules is an energy unit. Power measures things in watts. When you are doing these things, you must understand what your measurements are and what they are telling you. Once you understand those measurements, those will tell you how to adjust the design to make it a little bit better. All design changes, in the end, must be driven by your data. You're going to have performance data. That means you're going to have graphs, you're going to have charts, various things that show you how this device works. Ideally, everything that you do is going to be based on the measurements you make to make your device better. All good engineering projects require multiple prototypes where you build the first prototype, make changes to it, and now you have a second prototype. Make changes to that, and then you get another prototype. And so all of these prototypes have to be done based on the measurements that you make so that each one is better than the previous one. You've got to have good data. Science projects are similar to engineering projects in many respects, but they are also different in some key aspects. Let's work through that. This really complicated thing here is in your handouts that are associated with this workshop, but let's take a look at it in turn. So starting with the top part of this thing, you have to define what your topic is. That was the first 3 videos in this sequence of videos for the Science Fair workshop. I'm not going to dwell on these because those are all part of that earlier series. Now that you have your project, though, it's time to move forward and start making measurements. Pretty much every good project ever done has been done more than one time. In other words, you do the project, you look at how it worked and go, make some changes in your measurements, do the project again, look at how it worked. Oh, that's better. I can make it even better. Make some changes, do the project again, look at how it comes out. This process of analysis that goes around in a circle here is really important. That shows that you are paying attention to what's going on, and each of those changes that you make in your process have to be driven by the measurements you've made and not just random guesses. Oh, I'm just going to change this thing here and see if it makes things any better. Let's look at some of these things in a little bit in turn here. Scientific questions have to be something that is actually real. Needs to be something that is a true phenomena that you are observing or that is observable in nature. And just like with an engineering project, you have to clearly state what that is. It can't be an observation. It has to be a question in order to be able to make a good project out of it. The hypothesis must be falsifiable. In other words, it has to be possible to prove that you are wrong if you are wrong. Your hypothesis must be logical. It can't be something that just doesn't make any sense. It has to be something that makes sense. It also has to be comprehensive. You can't just simply say, well, sometimes this is going to happen. You want to know what's going to happen most of the time or all of the time. And similar to falsifiable, it has to be something that you can verify. You need to be able to actually test it and prove that this is true. Finally, your hypothesis must be something that is new, a different take on something. Just simply stating somebody else's hypothesis, unless your hypothesis is that you are testing repeatability, is not good enough. It's got to be something slightly different from what everybody else has done. Now you got to start collecting your data. And again, this is going to be similar for people collecting data for engineering projects. Your data collection must be comprehensive. You must include all data. Let's take an example of a pseudoscience, astrology. Astrologers claim that astrology works because every time something doesn't agree, they just ignore it. That doesn't work. They only accept those things that agree with them and say, hey, look, these times it agreed. And they'll say this time it agreed, and those 10 times it didn't agree, we're going to ignore those because, hey, look, this one time worked. That's not good enough. You have to keep all the data. That's why astrology is not a science. It's a pseudoscience or a false science. All experiments that involve the possibility that you could deceive yourself have to be double-blind. Let's take an example. If you're trying to work on a vaccine and you are doing something that you're taking a pill for this vaccine, one person needs to select out of your group of sample people those people that are going to get a sugar pill and those people that are going to get the real vaccine. The person who is doing the analysis cannot know who got what. The person who then does the analysis comes out with a set of conclusions from that, but they don't know how many people it worked for, how many people it didn't work for that had the sugar pill or had the real vaccine. At the very end, the person who decided who got what then gets together with the person who did the actual measurements, and they compare their two values and see, do my measurements conclude that those people who had the vaccine got better and those people who got the sugar pill did not? That is what's called a double-blind experiment. That avoids self-deception and makes it hard to have bias in the experiment. That's why we do it that way. It's a very important part of doing many measurements. Also, when you do a measurement over again, it has to agree with the first time that you did it. Your measurements must be repeatable. And it's always wise to do your measurements as many times as possible given the constraints of your particular experiment. Conclusions. The conclusions have to make sense. They have to be something that you figured out based on your measurements. And they have to match the data directly, not what you are hoping for. All right, conclusions have to be complete. In other words, it can't just be a few thoughts here and there. It's got to be a complete conclusion that matches your hypothesis. It has to be short. You can't be winding on and on. Your conclusion should be very concise. It must be clear and unequivocal. You can't have lots of waffling in it. And finally, it does need to address each point of your hypothesis must be addressed by a point in your conclusion. This is purely my opinion, but it is an opinion that I have formed by looking at science fairs and science fair projects and science fair judging for many, many projects. What I have noticed is that there seems to be a bias. This bias seems to be worse at lower level fairs where many of the judges aren't quite as sophisticated. But even at higher level fairs, I've seen this at the international fair, where there is still a background bias even amongst professionals when they are judging projects. People like projects that work. How do you address that? Well, if your project didn't work, and many projects don't, you need to be very clear about it and address what you would do to make it work. That's putting a positive spin on your outcome. Also, you can readjust your hypothesis as you're going through on a science project, for example, And as your knowledge evolves, you can always go back and revise your hypothesis while you're making your measurements and saying, I actually think now it's going to come out this way, and then just redo your project a little bit now that you have this revised idea. Revising your ideas as you go is a hallmark of good science. It's okay. Then you would put into your science fair report your final version of the hypothesis and how the data that you collected addressed that hypothesis. This is true in all of history, not just simply in science fair. The drawing that I've got here is the Michelson-Morley experiment. It was an incredibly important experiment, and it didn't work. They were trying to prove that there's something in space that isn't there. They didn't find it because it's not there. When they reported their results, pretty much everybody ignored the journal article that they wrote. For 20 some odd years, this project sat with very few people reading it. Then Einstein came along and discovered, hey, there's nothing in space. And then people started looking for evidence for this. They found the Michelson-Morley experiment and said, hey, look, we measured this 20 years ago and it was true. Then that experiment became incredibly important. Michelson did not get the Nobel Prize for this experiment, and Morley never got the Nobel Prize. Michelson got the Nobel Prize for a related set of measurements that were very, very Nobel worthy, but this project was Nobel worthy too, but it was a negative project. Nobody got the Nobel Prize for this project, and yet it was one of the most important measurements ever made. Quickly review, science projects ask, how does something work in nature? Why does that do what it does? Engineering projects say, how can I solve this problem? In both cases, they have a process of iteration where you go round and round. And so in the case of science, you make your measurements, look at your results, modify your measurements, measure again, look at your results, modify your measurements and technique, and make it better every time. In the case of engineering, you look at your prototype, you see how it performs, you make improvements, you look at how that performs, make measurements on it, see what things need to be tweaked a little bit, make a new prototype, see how that performs. In both cases, you are doing the cyclic process of improvement after making measurements that drive new improvements.